All right, peace talks with Iran are set to resume today after President Trump called off that massive strike over the weekend.
But the commander-in-chief says any agreement will depend on ending Tehran's nuclear program.
Alexandria Hoff is live at the White House with the latest. Good morning, Alex.
Yeah, good morning to you. The president says that American forces are ready to go, but that he wanted to avoid an unnecessary loss of life. He spoke to reporters on his way back from Bedminster, New Jersey this weekend. That's where he had spent the weekend after his Friday cabinet meeting at Camp David. But the president said that he had paused what would have been the biggest strike since World War II. After speaking with regional allies like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, the president citing what he calls the parameters of a deal having been made to end the nuclear threat, as he called it, from Iran and open the Strait of Hormuz.
What prompted you to call off the strikes last night?
I was asked to by Saudi Arabia, by UAE, and by Qatar, and by Iran. We're all set to go, but when the allies ask to call it off, you got to sort of say, well, let's see. And the reason they asked is I think there's a deal. There's a deal on Hormuz, and then there will be a deal on the nuclear, or you might call it the denuclearization of Iran.
So Iran's foreign ministry this morning saying that the country is not currently holding talks with the U.S., but is in discussions with Oman over the strait. Iran's president stating that the U.S. must be compelled to honor the memorandum of understanding that was signed last month, writing this: the memorandum will be the center of gravity for our foreign relations in the future. We must strive to compel the enemy to remain committed to what it has signed. And, you know, the issue remains with the memorandum last month is that in there had to be a guarantee from Iran that it would ensure safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. The issue is that's been misinterpreted by Iran to mean that the Strait of Hormuz is under its control, guys.
Thank you, Alexandria. You know, in the previous hour, I spoke to Brent Sadler, and he said a couple of things that I thought were interesting. One was he feels fairly confident that we probably will end up getting back into strikes between now and the election. But the other thing that he pointed out is that the economic sanctions against Iran have been very effective, and he expects to see them increase quite a bit because the degree to which Iran has been crippled by those sanctions has been significant.
Well, they've been crippled from an economic sanctions part, but they have also been crippled by military as well. Sure, we've seen them rebuild when we stopped the strikes, but the Iranians, they're not going to change their mission, their stated goal. Yeah. Whatever deal we decide to get, they're not going to stop hating Israel, and they're not going to stop hating the United States. But I think the president is kind of in a place right now with the midterms, and you have people within the administration that continue to stress that this could hurt the president in the midterms when it comes to the prices, and so there's a political side to this.
I wish it wouldn't, Lawrence, because he's trying to protect America. He 100%. Doesn't want them to have a nuclear weapon. They yell death to America. They want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And I believe biblically we have to support Israel. We also obviously need to make sure our homeland is safe. And so when we hear that they're moving materials into Pickaxe Mountain, and which is difficult, that's going to be a difficult journey for us because you'd have to go down so deep into the earth in order to destroy Pickaxe Mountain. Maybe that's what the president is planning. I'm not sure. But he does have a lot of generals surrounding him that do have plans and have given him great advice. He talked to Qatar, he talked to the UAE, he talked to Saudi Arabia, and they're worried about retaliation because geographically they're so close to Iran. They don't want to be targets if we hit their facilities. And Saudi Arabia, our president spoke to the Crown Prince, MBS, on Saturday, and MBS urged Donald Trump. He said, please de-escalate and refrain from launching these attacks. And you heard the president over the weekend say, I don't want to kill people. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have to do this. So if there is room for negotiation, then I'm willing to do that.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously, you know, if Iran thought that they were going to be able to play a bunch of games because we have midterms coming up, and it does complicate things without a doubt. The war is not a popular war, and it is definitely a drag on Republicans. It's a drag on the administration to have this going on. But if they thought that they were going to bully President Trump because of the midterms, they don't understand Donald Trump. Donald Trump he's not doing this for political reasons. He's doing it because he believes that it is imperative that for the protection of the world and the United States. And here's the thing that does kind of amaze me. The best deal Iran will ever get is today. And if Iran decides that they want to play games and play for time and then wait until after the election in order to make a deal, whatever deal you get on November 4th is going to be nothing compared to the deal you could get right now. Because while President Trump is going to continue doing this, once the election is behind him, all gloves are off.
I just worry as we continue to follow this, it's kind of like become like a seesaw effect, back and forth, back and forth. And I just think with the capabilities that we have, we could be done with this already. We have the necessary assets in place right now. We could finish the job and then move on. Unfortunately, you got some people that are within the administration that are pushing for some sort of deal, and they believe that there's no moderates in the government of Iran.
Yeah, the president said he's doing this, he's holding off the strikes for the future benefit of the world and the survival of a successful and prosperous Iran. Wouldn't that be wonderful for all those people that were out in the streets protesting, that lost their loved ones because they were standing up for what's right? The problem is this regime, and this regime is going to have to be toppled, but we're not in the business of doing that.
Right, exactly.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.